No one in Cleveland saw it coming. By the time the sun came up, the entire NFL had already turned its attention toward one place, and it wasn't because of a headline, a win streak, or a scandal. Something had shifted overnight. Quietly at first, then all at once. A whisper turned into a firestorm. And at the center? A rookie quarterback people thought they had all figured out. Shedeur Sanders. The name alone carries weight, legacy, pressure, expectations. But what just happened in Cleveland has nothing to do with where he comes from, and everything to do with where this team might be heading. Because while most of the league spent the week preparing for matchups as usual, Cleveland hit the panic button and pulled off the most unpredictable quarterback move of the season. And whether the world is ready or not, Shadr Sanders just became the face of one of the NFL's most tortured franchises. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not now. Not like this. But when the dust settled and the locker room quieted down, there was no more debate. The Browns lit the fuse. The league took notice. And the entire football world is bracing for what happens next. Nobody plans for disaster, especially not the kind that unravels an entire season right in front of your eyes. But in Cleveland, that's exactly what happened. The Browns entered the year with real hope. And that's not something this city takes for granted. Fans weren't dreaming of miracles, they were just hoping to finally see a team that could stay healthy, stay functional, and maybe, just maybe, make a real run in the AFC. And through the first few weeks, it looked like they might. Veteran quarterback Joe Flacco had stepped into the building with exactly what the team needed: experience, calm, and the kind of leadership that settles a locker room. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't fast, but he knew how to move the chains and manage games. And for a while, that was enough. Cleveland was winning ugly, but they were winning. And in a division like the AFC North, that's all that matters. But the NFL is undefeated when it comes to bringing chaos, and slowly, the cracks began to show. Flacco started missing throws. Drives stalled. The offense, once methodical, began to feel sluggish, like someone hanging on with tired hands. The deep ball wasn't there. The mobility was gone. And by midseason, it became painfully clear. The legs were aging, the arm was fading, and time had finally caught up to a quarterback who'd been surviving more on guts than game. The Browns needed a spark, any spark, and that search led them to a name most people hadn't expected to hear again so soon: Dillon Gabriel. The rookie wasn't supposed to touch the field this early. He was a long-term project, someone drafted with patience in mind. But patience is a luxury Cleveland no longer had. Out of options, out of rhythm, they threw Gabriel out there and prayed for surprise. And to be fair, there were flashes. He was mobile, fearless, willing to take shots others wouldn't. For a few drives, it almost worked. He kept them competitive. But surviving in the AFC North isn't about flashes, it's about withstanding punishment from some of the nastiest defenses in the league. Pittsburgh brings pressure from every direction. Baltimore plays chess with your QB's mind, disguising coverages like illusions. And Cincinnati, they just drag you into a shootout and dare you to survive. Gabriel gave it everything he had. But the hits piled up, the pressure collapsed in, and eventually, the moment that changes everything arrived like an ambush. One snap, one drive, one violent hit. And just like that, Gabriel was done. The stadium went silent, the sideline tensed, and everyone knew what it meant. The Browns were out of quarterbacks, again. The timing couldn't have been worse. The playoff picture was still wide open. The defense was holding up its end, grinding through games in the mud. But the offense? The offense was officially a disaster zone. There was no ready veteran on the bench, no trade deadline miracle, just a rookie quarterback standing on the sideline, helmet in hand, eyes wide, and jersey practically untouched since week 1. Shedeur Sanders. That moment, the moment Gabriel went down, didn't feel like a substitution. It felt like a pivot point, like the air had changed in the entire building. The kind of moment that divides a season into before and after. And for Cleveland, it was officially after. This wasn't some calculated transition. This wasn't part of the plan. It was chaos, plain and simple, and out of that chaos, Shedeur was thrown into the spotlight, not as the third option, but as the only option. No one knew what to expect. Not the players, not the fans, not even the Browns coaching staff. All they could do was hold their breath and hope that behind the last name, beyond the draft slide, beneath the noise, there was a quarterback ready to fight. And the wild part? That's when things really started to get interesting. What came next wasn't smooth, it wasn't pretty. But it sparked something the franchise hadn't felt in years: curiosity. Because even in the middle of the chaos, something unexpected began to rise. Not hype, not hope, but the possibility, just the chance that the rookie wearing number 5 might be more than just a kid with a famous dad and a headline-ready name. He might be the storm Cleveland never saw coming. Before all the media buzz. Before the sideline stare-downs. Before Cleveland gambled on a rookie with everything to prove, Shadr Sanders was supposed to be a first-round lock. Not fling, not developmental. Top 10. That's how the conversation went just weeks before the draft. Analysts couldn't stop talking about him. They praised his pocket presence, his touch on intermediate throws, his ability to stay calm when everything around him was falling apart. On paper, he looked like the real deal. His stat sheet? Loaded. His leadership? Measured, poise-driven, calculated. More polished than most college quarterbacks, and with a media presence that felt like it had already been crafted for the NFL spotlight. But then came draft night, and everything changed. One by one, teams looked his direction, then looked away. Pick after pick, his name stayed on the board. The room stayed quiet. And the whispers? They got louder. Teams that were supposedly high on him suddenly passed not once, but twice. Then a third time. Then a fourth. He wasn't just slipping, he was falling. There hadn't been a red flag in sight. No injuries, no off-field drama. All the pre-draft interviews had been clean. So what happened? That became the mystery everyone tried to solve, right there, live, on national television. Some insiders pointed at his college competition, said he didn't face defenses tough enough to test his processing speed or handle blitz packages like the NFL throws at you. Others claimed he benefited from a scripted system, a high-tempo offense tailored to his strengths that rarely asked him to adapt in real time. And then, the elephant in the draft room. The last name. Sanders. One of the most iconic names in football. Except this time, it wasn't Dion in the spotlight, it was his son. A player many believed came with baggage before he threw a single NFL pass. Not scandal, not ego, just gravity. Because when you draft a Sanders, you're not just bringing in a quarterback, you're inheriting the spotlight that never shuts off. Some execs loved that energy. Others flinched. Some didn't want the cameras, the questions, the comparisons. They weren't drafting Shedeur. They were trying to avoid primetime part 2. Even though Dion himself stayed hands-off, the shadow lingered. Reports surfaced that some franchises considered the circus too much. One anonymous GM even said off the record, "It's not about his abilities. It's about the narrative we'd be buying into the moment we draft him." Whether that narrative was fair didn't matter. It stuck. Just like that, the fall became irreversible. First round slipped into second, second into third. By the time day 3 arrived, the tone had changed from confusion to disbelief. How did this guy who had 70-plus total touchdowns in 2 years, a pocket passer's brain, and rally-the-room leadership somehow become an afterthought? When Cleveland finally called his name at pick 144, it didn't feel like a high-upside project. It felt like a rescue mission. They didn't just take a chance. They reclaimed a quarterback the league had turned its back on. And for Shedeur, that moment didn't just sting, it branded him. Mid-round quarterbacks don't get the benefit of the doubt. They get shelved, forgotten, or thrown in too early just to prove people right about their doubts. But Shedeur didn't shrink from the slide. He didn't lash out online. He didn't feed the doubters. He locked in, he trained, he waited. And when his name was finally called, the expression on his face said it all. They don't believe in me yet, but they will. That's the moment this story was born. Not the day he stepped on the field, not the day he was named starter, the day the league told him he wasn't ready and he quietly decided otherwise. Not every quarterback enters the NFL with a chip on his shoulder, but the ones who do often end up being the ones you remember. Some quarterbacks get eased in, a few soft games, maybe a second-half cameo, designed plays, controlled environments. Coaches build a safety net. The idea is to let them breathe before they're asked to carry anything. Shedeur got none of that. There was no prep, no warm-up, no warning. 1 minute, Dillon Gabriel was under center. The next, he was flat on the turf, trainers rushing in, the stadium dead quiet. You could feel it, the entire city of Cleveland holding its breath, because that wasn't just any hit. It was the kind that doesn't end with a trip to the sideline. It was the kind that changes plans, the kind that forcefully rewrites a season. Suddenly, there was no Flacco to turn back to. No backup plan in place. The headset clicked. The coaches looked across the sideline. And every head turned to the rookie in the #5 jersey. Shedeur Sanders. Helmet on. Cold, unprepared. And now, the undisputed starter for the moment, at least. When he jogged out to that huddle, everything stopped. The noise, the doubt, even the excuses. It didn't matter anymore that he wasn't supposed to play yet. It didn't matter that he'd barely taken reps with the first team. It didn't matter that the opposing defense wasn't just any defense, it was Baltimore. And Baltimore doesn't do mercy. They hit like a freight train, disguise coverages like magicians, and punish hesitation with surgical precision. They don't care if you're a rookie. They don't care if the moment is too big for you. In fact, they count on it being too big. And within minutes, it looked like they might be right. Shadr's timing was off. His passes floated. Routes broke down, reads got rushed or missed entirely. And the Ravens? They smelled blood in the water. Every mistake turned into a highlight clip. Every sack, every overthrow, every bad decision captured, clipped, posted. The internet did what it does best, tear down quarterbacks before they even start. Bust. Nepotism in real time. Dion should have kept him in college. The timeline lit up. Meme pages had a field day. And the verdict came down fast, way too early, way too harsh, and way too loud. But that's the thing about narratives. They only work when you stop watching what really matters. Because while everyone fixated on the stat line, something else was happening on the field, subtle, hard to measure, and completely overlooked by most fans. He kept getting up, each hit, each blown-up play, each mistake, and he didn't fold. He adjusted protections. He calmed receivers. He walked back to the huddle with a face that didn't flinch. And the Browns coaching staff? They saw it. They saw a rookie thrown into the worst scenario imaginable against one of the league's most ruthless defenses and refused to give in. They didn't see a bust. They saw a competitor. It wasn't a great debut. It wasn't supposed to be. No rookie survives being thrown into that kind of storm without scars. But Shadr didn't run from the fire. He stood in it. And there's something powerful about that. Because football isn't just about stats. It's not just about mechanics or throwing spirals on practice fields. It's about how a player responds when everything crumbles around them, when the stadium turns cold, the crowd goes quiet, and every screen is waiting to laugh at your failure. Shadr walked into that crucible and walked out still standing. Bruised? Definitely. Shaken? No question. But broken? Not even close. And in the film room the next morning, the Browns didn't just review the tape. They made a decision. They could have gone back to safety, signed a vet, punted on the season, played it safe. Instead, they asked themselves one thing. If that's what he looks like with 0 reps, 0 prep, and a league-trained defense breathing down his neck, what happens when we actually build around him? Most stories like this end the same way. A young quarterback rushed into a brutal situation, rattled by pressure and chewed up by one of the NFL's most unforgiving defenses. The debut goes badly, the critics pounce, and the team quietly moves on. They call a few veterans. They tone down the playbook. They button up the narrative and sell the illusion of patience. It's what the league does. Protects its investment, avoids the spotlight, doesn't risk the brand. And after what happened in Baltimore, everyone assumed Cleveland would fall in line. The Shedeur experiment would be paused, hidden, forgotten. That was the expectation. But Cleveland broke the script. Instead of turning the page, they circled his name in ink. The Monday after the loss, the Browns didn't bring in a backup. They didn't soften the rhetoric. There was no press release wrapped in vague language to buy time. What they did shocked everyone. Kevin Stefanski stepped in front of the mic and made it official. Shadr Sanders will be our Week 12 starting quarterback. No excuses, no disclaimers. No until further notice. Just fact. And in that one sentence, everything changed. Because now it wasn't about survival, it was about belief. Let's be honest, NFL coaches don't often put their reputations on the line for a rookie who just got bulldozed in prime time. Most back away, slowly, politely. But Cleveland doubled down. They didn't just choose Shedeur, they committed to him. And that subtle difference, the one between he has to play and we want him to play, is exactly why this moment exploded beyond football. Sports talk shows couldn't stop debating it. Was it a panic move? Was there something the public didn't see? Was Stefanski gambling his job on a hunch? But behind all the debate, something bigger was happening, something even the critics couldn't deny. The story was catching fire. Within 24 hours, ticket sales spiked. By Tuesday, every standing room ticket was gone. By Wednesday, the Browns-Raiders matchup, once a throwaway on the league calendar, was a full-blown sellout. Not because the Browns were surging, not because the Raiders were a playoff threat, because people wanted to see what the hell was about to happen. This wasn't just football. It was drama, legacy, chaos, pressure, all colliding in real time. You had a rookie trying to outrun the weight of his last name, a franchise without an identity, a fan base clinging to any spark that felt real. And suddenly, this was the moment getting national attention. This was the moment that felt bigger than the standings. It didn't make sense on paper. Shadr's stat line coming into the week didn't look like a savior's, but viewers weren't showing up for stats. They were showing up for the possibility, the unspoken belief that maybe, just maybe, they were about to witness something begin. But here's the part that matters most. Cleveland didn't name him the starter because they had no one else. They had practice squad options. They had system guys who knew the playbook better. They named him the starter because they saw something, not in the completion percentage, not in the QBR, but in what happened after the play broke down. When the pressure closed in, Shadr didn't shrink. When the reads weren't there, he kept his eyes up. When the line collapsed, he moved, reset, and tried to make something happen not perfectly, but fearlessly. That's what the coaches latched onto. Not the polish, not the stats, the mindset. Because in the NFL, where talent gets you drafted but mindset keeps you alive, what he showed in that baptism by fire in Baltimore was rare for a rookie. The internet missed it. The fans mostly missed it. But inside the building, Cleveland had seen enough. This wasn't an act of desperation. It was a statement. We're not preserving him. We're not hiding him. We're ready to build around him right now. That's not how rookie quarterback stories usually go. But that's how this one started. And just like that, everything changed. The offense was reset. The week's practices were redesigned around what Shadr does well: bootlegs, quick reads, open space, layered reads that let him attack, not react. He wasn't being fit into a machine. The machine was being rebuilt around him. And standing behind every decision was an entire city that has been waiting. Waiting for years. For something different. For something real. For a quarterback who didn't just show up with promise, but with fire. Because legacy quarterbacks don't just prove themselves on the field. They convince their team to take the leap with them. And this week, Cleveland jumped. What happens next? That's the part the league is still trying to figure out. What started as a lineup change became a headline. Then it became a conversation. And before the week was over, it became something even bigger, a movement. Because the moment Shadr Sanders was named the starter, something strange started happening in Cleveland. It wasn't just the local media swarming the team facility. That was expected. It wasn't just NFL Network and ESPN rolling out full segments midweek. That was inevitable too. What no one expected was the ripple effect to spread like this. Within hours of the announcement, search trends shot through the roof. Social media timelines transformed into a full-blown showdown of opinions, highlight reels, college tape, hot takes, wild comparisons. Everyone had a take. Everyone picked a side. And the one thing they all agreed on? This wasn't normal. Fifth-round rookies with shaky debuts don't instantly flip the emotional switch of an entire franchise. They don't move tickets. They don't lead highlight packages. And they definitely don't cause the NFL to reroute media coverage halfway through the week. But that's exactly what happened. Suddenly, a game that was supposed to be background noise on the Week 12 schedule was a sellout. Every seat, every section, every standing room spot was gone. The secondary market exploded. Nosebleeds jumped from $60 to nearly $300 overnight, prices that didn't match a team barely holding it together. Unless what fans were buying wasn't a game. It was a moment. Shadr wasn't just a quarterback stepping in. He became the symbol of a question no one could ignore. What if everything we thought about him was wrong? It wasn't just the Browns fans who were talking. It was NFL legends, current stars, coaches from other teams. One former Pro Bowler posted, "Watch his footwork versus pressure. He's ahead of where most vets are mentally. Dude just needs time." There was no consensus. Just noise, energy, possibility. And underneath it all, a rare electricity that's almost impossible to explain unless you've seen it before. Because this wasn't just about the QB anymore. This was about the culture. See, Cleveland isn't like most football cities. This fan base doesn't casually show up for something new. They've survived too many false starts. Too many quarterbacks who were promised as the future and ended up on the bench, in the news, or worse, forgotten. They've had their hearts broken by high-round picks, free agents, one-hit wonders, and everything in between. They don't fall for hope easily. So when they do, you know something different is happening. And that's exactly what set this whole story on fire. Shedeur didn't arrive with swagger. He arrived with urgency. Not a promise of greatness, just the willingness to fight for it out loud. That's what started clicking with fans. Not the name on his jersey, the way he carried it. While the media roasted his first performance, local fans noticed the blocks he threw after handing it off. They noticed how he kept getting up after hits, how he didn't point fingers, how he took accountability in post-game interviews most rookies would have ducked. And gradually, something shifted. People showed up to open practice. Jerseys sold out in team stores. Kids wore number 5 inches school hallways. Barbershops turned his film into talking points. YouTube and TikTok flooded with commentary. But more than the hype was the weight. Because now there was pressure like never before, not just the regular kind that comes with playing quarterback in an NFL city. This was different. This was expectation laced with desperation. Cleveland didn't just want him to succeed. They needed him to. This city has been through too much. Years of rebuilds. Rotating coaches. Quarterback after quarterback. Hope, crash, repeat. But this story, the Sanders story, it doesn't feel like those. It feels louder. It feels riskier. And most of all, it feels real. Because even if it's just an illusion, even if he stumbles again on Sunday, all of this doesn't feel forced. It feels authentic, messy, human. The kind of sports story that becomes culture, not just content. It's not about being compared to his father. It's not about being flawless. It's about belonging. And when the media shows up early, when fans paint signs, when ticket prices spike even in the middle of a cold, inconsistent season, that's not business. That's belief. One start, one more chance. That's where the story picks up. And that's when it becomes impossible to look away. Because if he walks into that stadium, owns the field, and even flirts with brilliance, he won't just change the quarterback room. He'll change Cleveland itself. Most quarterbacks walk onto an NFL field with a blank slate. If they struggle, they're just a rookie. If they shine, they're a surprise. The story builds slowly, one game, one headline, one stat at a time. Shadr Sanders never got that luxury. From the first moment his name hit a draft board, he wasn't analyzed as a quarterback. He was dissected as a Sanders. And being a Sanders means the slate's already etched in gold. Because when your father is Deion Primetime, one of the greatest athletes in sports history, the weight you carry isn't just expectations, it's comparison. Everything you do is viewed through a warped lens. Not, can you play? But why don't you look more like him? Deion dominated. Loudly, publicly, he danced after picks, he strutted. He turned post-game pressers into performances and then backed it all up with generational talent. He wasn't just a cornerback, he was a moment. A movement, a brand before branding was even part of the game. And now Shedeur, quiet by comparison, disciplined, low flash, is walking into huddles where the name Sanders lights up more reactions than his first completion. He's not just playing for playing time, he's playing while being measured against a myth. It started way back in college. As soon as he put on a Colorado uniform beneath his father's gaze, the spotlight grew hot. Not warm, hot. His stats? Impressive. His mechanics? Solid. But the conversation always circled back to the same question. Would we be talking about him if his dad wasn't Deion? Not. Is he leading game-winning drives? Not. Is he doing more with less on a roster stretched thin? Just. Nepotism. Privilege. Hype. That word nepotism hung over every snap, every press conference, every single bit of progress he made. Never mind the hits he took behind a weak offensive line. Ignore the numbers, the 3,000-yard seasons, the game-winning drives. Forget the leadership, the silence through storms, the way he froze out the noise. To many, he wasn't playing from scratch. He was playing from debt. And somehow, he's still playing from there now. Every step Shedeur takes in the NFL isn't evaluated like a rookie's. It's critiqued like a TV show in its second season that people already decided they didn't like. The throws are either expected or underwhelming. The wins are circumstantial. The losses? Somehow personal. Because when your last name carries the weight of a legacy, your reality is built out of expectations you never agreed to. He's not allowed to be raw. He's not allowed to struggle like other rookies. He's not even allowed to grow quietly under the radar. Everything he does becomes commentary. If he scrambles, he's uncomposed. If he stays in the pocket, he's too stiff. If he wins, must have been lucky. If he loses, see, told you, he's not built for this. And yet, through all that noise, Shedeur remains deliberate, grounded, still. You can see it in post-game interviews, no excuses, no complaining, no dramatics. Because he's not trying to beat the shadow of his father. He's finding a way to walk beside it, without being swallowed whole. He's not trying to be primetime 2. He's trying to be Shedeur cool, where his father was loud, patient, where his father was blazing fast. Different energy, same ambition. What critics forget is that while Dion turned football into showbiz, Shedeur is building his game the opposite way. Quietly, methodically, from the pocket, from film study, from grit, not glitter. Does he want to win like his dad? Absolutely. Does he have the same fire? No doubt. But his path was never scripted to be the same. It can't be. That's the point. He's not trying to wear the crown, he's trying to define what it means to wear it differently. And now, as he steps into a sold-out stadium, with tens of thousands of fans screaming and millions watching from home, not just for highlights, but for a verdict he's facing 2 opponents, the Raiders and the weight of perception. That's what this moment is really about. Not stats, not headlines, identity. Because if he wins, it won't just be his first true NFL victory. It'll be the first crack in a narrative that's followed him his whole life. No longer just the son of a legend, but the quarterback carving one of his own. The last time Shandr Sanders stepped onto an NFL field, it wasn't about preparation. It was about survival. No reps with the first team, no time to review film, no rhythm, no chemistry, no pacing, just chaos. Thrown into a divisional war zone against a Baltimore defense built to humiliate unprepared quarterbacks. That night was never supposed to be the beginning. It was a forced debut, a trial by fire. But this Sunday, it's not survival, it's strategy. This time, the week belongs to him. Let that sink in. He's not just filling in anymore. He's the guy now. From Monday morning install to Saturday night walkthroughs, every single offensive rep starts with him. The reads, designed for him. The progressions, molded around his strengths. And that's the biggest difference of all. Because NFL success isn't just about talent, it's about timing. It's about being ready, not just physically, but mentally and structurally. And for the first time in his pro career, Shedeur doesn't have to catch up to the moment. The moment has come to him. And if you know football, you know what that means. You start scripting plays for quick rhythm. You simplify reads. You build comfort into motion. You create movement. Let him boot out of the pocket. Let him see the field on the run where he's calm, confident, and dangerous. Suddenly, the game doesn't feel like it's attacking him. It slows down. It makes sense. Cleveland's coaching staff has taken a hard look at who Shedeur is, not the headlines, not the comparisons, the actual quarterback. And they're building the game plan around him. That matters because too many organizations force rookies into systems designed for someone else. They try to coach them up into molds that were never built for their skill sets. But Shedeur isn't being shoved into a cylindrical offense meant for a statue in the pocket. He's being empowered with motion, flexibility, rhythm throws, and plays that give him room to breathe and time to think. It's not a full playbook. They're not throwing the kitchen sink at him. That's not the point. The Browns aren't trying to see how much he can memorize. They're trying to see how much he can own. And there's no better opponent to test that against than the one waiting on Sunday, the Las Vegas Raiders. A team high in talent but low in consistency. Their defense? Dangerous when dialed in but loose. Shaky. Disconnected across stretches. They give up soft zones in the middle of the field. They get burned on misdirection. And they're prone to bite on fakes in motion. Where Baltimore gave you disguised blitzes and tight windows, Las Vegas gives you opportunity. They bend. They react late. And if Shedeur can stay composed, hit timing routes, take what the defense gives him, and pull defenders out of position with his legs, he can punish them. These aren't hypotheticals. This is real strategic football, and this time, he's ready for it. For once, Shedeur isn't guessing what the defense is throwing at him while he's in the middle of the storm. He's had a full week to break it down. Film sessions, install meetings, Zoom prep with his receivers, communication drills with the offensive line. For the first time, there's a plan. And when a young quarterback has structure built around his comfort zones, it doesn't matter what the critics said 2 weeks ago. Because confidence doesn't come from noise. It comes from reps, rhythm, and repetition. And that's what this week gave him. He's not learning the offense, he's finally running it. And maybe that's why even the most cautious inside the Browns organization are starting to talk differently. Privately, there's optimism. Receivers say his timing feels smoother. The locker room notices his voice getting louder in team drills, not cocky, but commanding. He's not just a rookie trying not to fail anymore. He's starting to see plays before they happen. And when preparation meets purpose, something shifts. Shedeur isn't showing up wondering if he belongs. He's arriving on Sunday knowing this game was built for him. This is no longer a fire he was thrown into. This is a field he's choosing to own. And if he executes, if this perfectly tailored game plan clicks under pressure, we won't be talking about potential on Monday. We'll be talking about proof. The kind that moves beyond headlines, the kind that silences doubt, the kind that changes careers and franchises with one performance. Every NFL quarterback faces pressure. But not every quarterback faces this. The cameras only capture so much. The plays, the hits, the celebrations, the lows. But what they never capture and what decides everything is the fight no one else can see. Not the one between the lines, the one inside your own head. Because for all the media buzz, sold-out crowds, and highlight reels waiting to happen, Shadr Sanders is in the middle of a quieter, more dangerous battle, one that might decide his future long before the first snap. It's not against the Raiders' defense. It's against the voice in his own mind, the one that whispers after every mistake, the one that remembers every overhyped tweet during his meltdown in Baltimore, the one that still replays draft night, not with excitement, but with shame. 144th pick. 5th round. They passed on you for guys they'd never even heard of 6 months ago. That voice doesn't care how many interviews you've done. It doesn't care how strong your arm is. It isn't silenced by film, study, or prep, or even a few good drives. Because that voice isn't about facts. It's about fear. And right now, that fear is louder than ever. This week, Shedeur isn't just preparing for a football game. He's walking a tightrope between two extreme futures, one where he leads an unlikely resurgence in Cleveland, and one where he folds under the lights and becomes just another name on the Browns' QB timeline. That's the razor-thin line he's on. And he knows it. He knows some sportsbooks already have bets on whether he'll finish the game. He knows talk shows are split between he could be special and he's just the next experiment. He knows there are analysts hoping he fails because it fits the story they already wrote weeks ago. And still, he suits up. Still, he takes the playbook home. Still, he leads the huddle. Still, he walks into the stadium like he's already earned something that maybe he hasn't yet. But here's what most people won't admit. Mental toughness isn't about confidence. It's about weathering the doubt, recognizing it, staring it down, and choosing to play anyway. Right now, Shedeur is the target. Defenses want to rattle him. Critics want receipts. Some fans want a fairy tale. Others are tired of waiting for one. And in the middle of all that is a 1-year-old who didn't ask for the spotlight, but who refuses to look away from it. Because this week isn't about learning the playbook. It's about learning his limits, where his nerves end and his instincts begin. Most rookies coming into the league are fighting to earn the trust of teammates. Shedeur is fighting to survive their expectations. Those are different battles. One's challenging. The other can crush you. A lot of quarterbacks come into the league with better resumes than Shedeur. More polished, more prepared, less noise. But the NFL eats hype for breakfast. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care whose son you are. It doesn't care how many Instagram edits you have, or if your jersey sold out in the team store. It cares about what you do when it's 3rd and 9, and the pocket collapses, and the route falls apart, and none of it is going the way you practiced. In those moments, you don't compete with the other team. You compete with yourself. That's what makes this Sunday so crucial. Because the stakes on the scoreboard are only half the story. The real game is being played above the neck. Can he slow down the chaos before the snap? Can he breathe when the stadium tightens? Can he calm a huddle full of veterans looking at him for answers he doesn't have yet? That's leadership in the NFL. Not yelling loud, not being charismatic, but being grounded when every heartbeat feels like thunder. And for Shadr, that's the last test. Because if he can walk onto that field, replace noise with clarity, and fight off the doubt just long enough to execute with poise, if he can command a huddle, deliver when the line crumbles, and stay standing when the game speeds up faster than the breath in his chest, then nothing the outside world says will matter anymore. Because when he wins that battle, the battle no one sees, the rest of the league will finally see him, and he'll finally start becoming what he already believes he is. Not just a name living in a shadow, but a quarterback ready to carve one of his own. Everything has led to this. The draft nightfall, the Baltimore chaos, the spotlight, the headlines, the whispers, the doubt, the belief, the pressure, the preparation, the mental gauntlet no rookie should have to face this early. And now, it all funnels into one game, one Sunday, one shot. Not at glory, but at control. That's what this is really about for Shadr Sanders. Not a breakout, not revenge. Control. Because from the moment he entered the league, nothing felt like it belonged to him. He wasn't drafted into comfort. He wasn't guided into opportunity. He was thrown backwards into one of the most volatile, tortured franchises in football history and told to figure it out in real time. And now, for the first time since he put on an NFL jersey, the path isn't being decided for him. He's deciding where it goes next. And the impact of that? It goes way beyond him. Because this Sunday isn't just about proving critics wrong or cementing one player's potential. This game could shift the entire direction of the Cleveland Browns franchise. If Shadr performs even if he's just efficient, not electric, the ripple effect starts immediately. Stefanski's staff gets clarity. The front office gains flexibility. The locker room gets belief. They don't have to keep living trade window to trade window. They don't have to gamble on mid-tier veterans or overpay in desperation. They don't have to pray that the next draft class holds a miracle. They can move with purpose, with a long-term plan, with stability, something Cleveland hasn't had in decades. And for Browns fans, it would mean something that numbers alone can't explain. Because this fan base isn't just tired, it's scarred. Quarterback after quarterback, year after year. Each one starting with hope and ending with heartbreak. A blur of jerseys. Next man up headlines. Comeback stories that came undone. But if Shadr even flashes something real toughness, poise, progress, that cycle could finally crack. A fan base that's been stuck in neutral might actually start moving forward, not in blind hope, but earned belief. And the city feels it. Every corner of Cleveland is watching this moment unfold like it's more than football, because to them it is. Shadr isn't just stepping in as a quarterback. He's walking directly into a city's generational question mark. Is this finally the guy? Not the flashiest, not the loudest, but the one who can take everything, the pressure, the legacy, the expectations, and stay standing. The flip side, of course, is just as real. If he stumbles, if the moment spills over, Cleveland doesn't just go back to the bench. They go back to square one. Again, another search, another restart, another what if on the list of almost quarterbacks. And the narrative that's quietly pushing against Shadr every step of the way? It'll tighten its grip. Too soon. Too raw. Carried by hype. So yeah, the stakes are enormous. Not for the playoffs. Not even for the win. But for what comes after. Because this game isn't just a game. It's a referendum on the Browns' future and on Shad times R's own self-made path. He doesn't need to throw for 400 yards. He doesn't need to go viral. All he needs to do is lead, cleanly, tough, sharply. All he needs to do is show he's ready. That one performance, just one, could buy him the one thing every young quarterback in the NFL is chasing: time. Time to grow. Time to develop. Time to stop being a headline and start becoming a quarterback. And right now, that clock is ticking. Thousands in the stands, millions watching from screens, opponents ready to pounce, analysts sharpening their reactions. And in the middle of it all, Shadr pulls down his helmet, hears his name over the stadium speaker echo, and jogs into the light one more time. This isn't a comeback. It's not a debut. It's not an audition. This is a decision. A line in the story where everything either opens up or caves in. And the most brutal, beautiful part of it? Nobody can help him now. Not Stefanski. Not the fans. Not his father. This is the part of football where it's just a quarterback, a field, and the truth. And whatever happens next, it won't just define Shadr's Sunday. It might define Cleveland's next 5 years. Because sometimes a franchise doesn't change because of a blockbuster trade or a genius scheme. Sometimes it changes because one rookie walks out there and simply refuses to fold. So now, we wait. The stadium is full, the cameras are rolling, the story is set. All that's left is the moment.